Good morning, students. Welcome to the live lecture of Real Analysis 1. In the last lecture, we have seen two important theorems, that is, product of two integrable function is integrable. Also, quotient of two integrable functions is integrable provided the quotient is defined. Quotient is defined means we want the denominator of this quotient to be non-zero. By taking care of this, we have proved both the theorems. Also, we have proved one important lemma which is used for the proof of these two theorems. Now, in today's lecture, we were going to prove that if a given function is bounded and integrable, then its modulus is also integrable and its square is also integrable. Okay, let me write the first theorem of today's lecture. If f is bounded and integrable, if f is bounded and integrable on closed interval a to b, then prove that mod f is also bounded and integrable. Mod f is bounded and integrable on closed interval ab. Okay. Moreover, it is asked us to prove about the integration values. Okay. Moreover, we wanted to prove that modulus of an integration a to b f dx is less than or equals to integration a to b mod f dx. Integration a to b f mod x dx. Okay. Do you know what about the nature of the modulus functions? If any function f is given to us, say, what is the nature of the modulus functions? You can take some sine curve, right? This is the curve we have, say. Okay, this is my f, originally f function. Then if I wanted to plot its mod f, what will be a curve? Yes, what kind of curve it will be? There is no change in the non-negative part of the given function, right? No, the change will be only in the negative part of the given function. Where is the negative part? This is the negative part of the function, and the value will be turned out to be non-negative, correct? No, as per the definition of mod f function. How this mod f function is defined? Mod f operated on f is defined as mod of f of x. Okay, and how this mod of f of x is defined as? This is defined as f of x if f of x is non-negative. And how it is defined if it is negative, non-positive? What's the definition here? Mod f of x. Huh? Mod f of x is f of x for f of x non-negative. What is the value if f of x is non-positive? Less than or equals to 0. Ah, yes. How we are going to define mod of a? A for a non-negative. And what is the definition here for a non-positive? Is the voice clear to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
What is the value we were defining for mod of a? Is it minus a? Right now, because for a non-positive, that is if either it takes negative or 0 value, if I take its negative, it will be giving me the non-negative value. Correct now? But as per this definition, we were going to convert a non-positive value to non-negative value. So what kind of curve we will get? This curve will be shifted to this position. Correct? Right now?
Yes.
This is mod f.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
if I take the integration of mod f function, this is mod f. Okay, if I take the integration of mod x function, okay, this is always going to be greater or equal by this curve. Let's prove this. First, we have to show that this f mod f is bounded, knowing f is bounded and integrable. Let me do this as a first step. Step number 1 to prove that mod f is bounded. Mod f is bounded. Okay, but what is given to us? What we know, since f is bounded, na? It is given to be bounded. Therefore, may I say there exists a positive constant k such that, what such that? Mod of f of x is less than or equals to k for all x in the given interval AB. This is what a definition. Okay. Now what we know how this mod f function is defined? Mod f operated on x is defined as, yes, mod of f of x. But mod of f of x is already less equal by k by this above statement. Therefore, by using this, may I say mod f operated on x less than or equals to k. One can also write as mod f operated on x less than or equals to k. With this, can I say mod f is a bounded function?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it okay? Yes, the function is bounded. Okay. Next, we will try to show that this is integrable. In the previous 2-3 theorems, what we have seen, to prove the function is integrable, first we have to establish the relation between the bounds. Correct now?
Yes, ma'am.
Relation between the bounds. Here also we wanted to establish the relation between the bounds of f and mod. Okay. Before that, let me write one general partition. Let p equals to arbitrary partition we are writing, right? A equals to x naught, x1, so on, up to xn equals to b, be any partition of closed interval AB. This is the partition we have considered. And now we will write the definition for f is integrable. What we know that f is integrable on closed interval AB. If it is integrable, let us use the condition of integrability itself for this function f. Okay. So for may I write by condition of integrability. By condition of integrability, we have what we have. What is the condition of integrability for the function f?
UPF minus LPF less than epsilon.
Less than
Very good. Less than epsilon. Let me call it as statement number 1. Okay. Now let me write the bounds again. Let capital Mi and small mi, and let us write in one statement itself. Capital Mi dash and small mi dash be bounds of f and mod f respectively in ith subinterval. Okay. Mod f we wanted to prove integrable, no? For the bounds we have assumed like this. Mi are the bounds of f, dashes are the bounds of mod f. Okay. Now for this, let me start with any arbitrary two elements so that I can use that lemma we have proved in the last lecture. Correct, no? What is the lemma? Supremum of the set of oscillations. Supremum of the set mod fx1 minus fx2 is the oscillation. Correct, no? Therefore, let me consider the suprema for this set. For which function I wanted to prove integrable? Mod f. Therefore, I will operate mod f operated on x2, mod f operated on x1. Okay. Now, what is the definition actually? Mod f operated on x2, is it mod of f of x2 minus mod of f of x1, correct? Okay. Though these values are in the modulus, finally we have one more modulus difference. Therefore, writing this middle modulus value or not is the same thing. Therefore, may I just write this is less equal by mod of fx2 minus fx1. Okay. And by lemma, what is the suprema of this set? For the function f, these are the bounds. For the function mod f, these are the bounds, right? Therefore, what is the suprema of this kind of set? Modulus difference of the function value for any 2 points in the ith subinterval. Yes? What is the suprema?
small mi dash.
Very good. No, it is mi only.
Yes, ma'am.
Dashes are the bounds for mod f we have written, right? Therefore, can I write capital Mi minus small mi? Okay, the reason here is by lemma. Okay. Similarly, let us use the lemma for the left hand side values as well. But okay, again by the lemma, by previous lemma, again lemma. I'm going to use lemma again. What is the suprema for this set? This set, left hand side set. Supremum of the set mod f operated on x2 in the modulus mod f operated on x1 in the modulus x1 x2 are in the ith subinterval xi minus 1 to xi. What is the suprema for this set? What are the bounds for mod f we have written? Mi dash and mi dash, right now? So what will be a suprema? Yes,
mi dash minus small mi dash.
very good. Capital Mi dash minus small mi dash. Okay, now look at this statement number 2 I will call, and let me call it as statement number 3. This is a least upper bound of the set, and if I change the different values, this becomes arbitrary upper bound. Correct? No? Then what will be a relation between these two? Least upper bound and upper bound. From 2 and 3, may I write? Yes, what is the relation you have to tell me? Hmm?
Less equal.
Yes, it is less equal from these two. This is least upper bound. This is arbitrary upper bound. Correct? No? Now we have obtained the relation between the bounds of the function f and mod f. What should be my next step?
Multiply by delta xi
Very
and
good.
adding.
Multiply by delta xi and adding over I equals to 1 to n. Is it okay? So let me just write summation I equals to 1 to n capital Mi dash delta xi minus summation I equals to 1 to n small mi dash delta xi less than or equals to summation I equals to 1 to n capital Mi delta xi minus summation I equals to 1 to n small mi delta xi. Is that okay? Now let you just tell me the sums corresponding to that every term. This is a sum corresponding to which function? Dashes are the bounds for which function we have written? Mod f. Without dashes are the bounds for the function f we have written. Therefore, this first summation is, yes, which sum for which function?
U of
UP
P.
mod F. Mod F.
Yes, it is up mod f. This is elp mod f. Okay, and what for this? This is up f simply. This is LP, yeah. But this we have written already less than by epsilon, no? Because the function f is integrable. What is the reason from 1, no? 1 is the number we have given, I think. Let me just check. Yes, Vp of minus LPF less than epsilon. This is given by statement number 1. Okay, what this implies then? Hence, the function mod f is integrable. Whenever f is integrable, we can claim mod f is integrable on the given interval a to b. Okay. Now let us proceed in the third step, proving that inequality. Asked us to prove. What is the inequality we wanted to prove in this? Modulus integration a to b of dx is less than or equals to integration a to b mod f dx. See, the proof of this is very easy, and it depends on one of the deduction we have proved earlier. I think you might be remembering the reduction. Whenever f is less than or equals to g, we have already written that integration f dx is less than or equals to integration g dx. Correct? We have proved this, no? I think reduction number 5 it is. Now we were going to just make use of this statement in order to prove the result. For this, we want the relation between f and mod f. We want the relation between f and mod f. Correct, no? Okay, before that, proving any term mod x less than or equals to a. What we were going to prove? This is mod x, na? Suppose this is x and this is a. Mod x less than or equals to. What is the aim to prove actually? X lies between minus a to plus a. Correct, no?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Or in two different inequalities, one can write left inequality x less than or equals to a. Left inequality is minus a less than or equals to a. Okay, which I can write in the similar fashion as here. Let me absorb the negative sign. By absorbing the negative, so can I say minus x is less than or equals to a? Okay, therefore whenever I wanted to prove mod x less than or equals to a, it is sufficient to prove x less than or equals to a and mod x minus x less than or equals to a. Same thing we were going to do here in this step. Okay, what we wanted to prove then? If I wanted to prove this mod integration less than or equals to a fixed term, what we wanted to prove then? This integration less than or equals to a, negative of this integration is also less than or equals to same term. Correct now? Let us prove this. Okay. Now for this, we wanted to establish the relation between f and mod f. Can anyone tell me the relation between f and mod f? May I say f is less than or equals to mod f always? Minus f is also less than or equals to mod f. Is this point is understood to everyone? This inequality. F is less than or equals to mod f. Minus f is also less than or equals to mod f. If this is so, here we can use the reduction directly. Therefore, here we can write by deduction number 5. You can write the deduction in short. F less than or equals to g implies integration f dx is less than or equals to integration g dx. By using this deduction, how can I write the first statement? May I write integration f dx from a to b is less than or equals to integration a to b mod f dx, and what is the second one? Integration a to b minus f dx is less than or equals to integration a to b mod f dx. Okay, so let us take this negative out. Okay, if I can write both the statements again. Integration a to b f dx is less than or equals to integration a to b mod f dx. And taking this negative out, can I write integration a to b f dx? Negative integration a to b f dx is less than or equals to integration a to b mod f dx. Okay, if the statement we have proved is of the form x less than or equals to a and minus x less than or equals to a. For combining both, one can write mod x is less than or equal to. Okay. Therefore, from the two equations from above, two inequalities, we can write. This is what we can write. Integration a to b f dx in the modulus is less than or equals to integration a to b mod f dx. Hence the proof of the theorem. Any difficulty with this?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And we have to note here that the converse of the above theorem is not true. What is the converse? Yes. What will be the converse statement of the given theorem? What we have proved? F integrable implies mod f integrable. What will be the converse then? Mod f integrable will not imply that f is integrable. Correct, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes? Understood the proof?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let
Yes,
us go
ma'am.
for next theorem then. In the next theorem, now we were going to prove if f is integrable, then f square is also integrable. If f is integrable on closed interval AB, then prove that f square is also integrable on closed interval. First, we have to check boundedness. No, what can you say about the boundedness? If f is integrable, means it is given bounded and integrable both. If f is bounded, can we say f square is also bounded? Yes, students. F square is bounded or not?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, it is bounded. Okay. How can we prove the boundedness actually? Actually, to establish the relation between f and f square is somewhat difficult. Because we were going to use mod f relation. Why it is difficult to use the relation between f and mod f? One can ask the question. For this, let me give you a simple example. Suppose the function I am giving you is f of x equal to minus x on the interval 1 to 2. Okay. Then what are the bounds? Capital M and small m.
2, 1,
What is capital M?
2.
2, 2.
Function is minus x, no?
Minus 1.
Minus 1.
Minus 1 is the upper bound and minus 2 will be the lower bound, that is suprema and infima. If I take f square of x, then what is my function? Minus x square, that is x square, na? Correct?
Moment.
Then what about the bounds?
4, m is equal to
M dash is 4 and small m dash is
1.
1.
1.
Okay. Can you relate the relation between their bounds directly as m dash is capital M square? No. Correct na? Because if I take here, it is reverse actually. If you take the square of infima, it becomes a suprema. If you take the square of suprema, it becomes the infima. Why? Because of this negative values of the given function. Okay. Instead of this, if you change the function f of x as x on the same interval 1 to 2 say, then what is my capital M? 2. Small m is 1. Now you can relate. This capital M square is m dash, small m square is small m dash. Right? No. Therefore, if I wanted to find the relation between the bounds of the function and its square, then we cannot use the function here. What we have to use? We have to use the non-negative values of the given function. Because with this, we cannot give a relation m dash as m square. Can you give like this? No. Unless the function is non-negative, you cannot give the relation between the bounds like this. Okay. For this, instead of using a function f integrable and giving the relation between the bounds, we were going to use mod f. Okay. Here also I write, since f is bounded and integrable on AB, I am going to write mod f is integrable. Try to understand why I am imposing mod f. Mod f is bounded and integrable on closed interval. If mod f is integrable, may I write there exists a positive constant m greater than 0 such that, what such that? Mod of f of x is less than or equals to m for all x in the closed interval AB. Okay. Now, what we have to go for? Mod of f square of x. Correct now? To check whether it is bounded or not. How the function f square is operated? What is the definition? F square operated on x is f of x bracket square. Correct now? Pointwise operation. Therefore, here can I write the same as mod of f of x bracket square. Now, if mod f of x is less than or equals to m, what about the square less than or equals to m square? Therefore, can I claim f square is bounded? Yes. Can I claim f square is bounded or not?
Yes, ma'am. It is bound.
Yes,
Bounded.
it is bounded. Okay. And have you understood why we were not taking the relation between bounds of f and f square? We were taking the relation between bounds of mod f and f square, so that it will give us directly a square relation. Therefore, here I am going to write f square is bounded on closed interval a to b. Okay. In the next step, we are going for integrability. Step 2, to prove that f square is integrable on closed interval a to b. Okay, now let us write the relation between the bounds. Again, I will write since f is integrable on closed interval AB, it implies mod f is integrable on closed interval. Okay, I hope everyone has the clear idea why we were taking mod f. Okay, now therefore I am going to write the condition of integrability for mod f function. Therefore, for epsilon greater than 0, there exists a partition P of closed interval AB such that, what is such that? UP mod f minus LP mod f is less than by epsilon. Let me call it a statement number. Okay, mod f is integrable, we have written. Now let us write the relation let us write the bounds so that we can establish the relation between them. I am going to write capital Mi and small mi the bounds of mod f, and capital Mi dash small mi dash the bounds of f square in ith subinterval. In ith subinterval. Then, yes, what is the relation between mi dash and mi small mi dash and small mi? Okay, as of we have discussed with this example, here you can see directly square, no? M dash directly is m square, small m dash is directly small m square, provided but the function is non-negative. Correct now? This function is non-negative. Okay, and here we have already written the function is mod f, means the function is surely non-negative. Therefore, can I write the relation between the bounds as capital Mi dash is mi square, small mi dash is mi square. If you write these are the bounds of f, this is not possible to write the relation between the bounds like this. Is it okay? Understood this or not?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Now we were going to check the condition of integrability for which function? F square function, correct? No? And what is the aim to show? This is less than by epsilon, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me write the definition. Summation I equals to 1 to n mi dash delta xi minus summation I equals to 1 to n small mi dash delta xi. Let me combine the summation and let me take delta xi common. Therefore, this is capital Mi dash minus a small mi dash delta xi. Now, already we have written the relation mi dash is mi square, small mi dash is small mi square. Let me write this relation also. May I write this as mi square minus mi square. Okay. Who has just joined just now? Hmm? कौन ज्वाइन किया आता? Okay. Now can I separate this relation as capital Mi minus small mi, capital Mi plus small mi into delta xi, left hand side as it is, UP of square minus LP of square. Okay. Now here we can easily check. This gives us Mi minus Mi into delta xi will give us UP mod f minus LP mod f. Correct na? But we have to adjust this term. Okay. To adjust this term, what we were going to write, capital Mi and small mi are actually the bounds of the given function mod f in ith subinterval. Then what is the relation with capital M? May I write here? We know that. What we know that? Small mi less than or equals to capital Mi. But capital Mi less than or equals to capital M. Right now? That is, I can write small mi, capital Mi less than or equals to M. And small mi is also less than or equals to capital M. Let me just add these two. Can I write capital Mi plus small mi less than or equals to 2m? Okay. Let me replace this term by less than or equals to 2m. Therefore, this equality changes to inequality, less than or equals to. I will write UP f square minus LP f square is less than or equals to summation capital Mi minus small mi, and this I am going to replace by 2m into delta xi. Now easily one can check, as the sum is running over I, this 2m can be taken out. Therefore here I can write this as 2m summation I equals to 1 to n capital Mi minus small mi delta xi. Now again you multiply by delta xi to this bracket. May I say it will give you both the sums. Correct now? What will be the first sum give me? Summation capital Mi delta xi. Upper sum, right? For which function it is?
Mod.
U of P.
Yes, it is mod. And summation small mi delta xi is lower sum. Correct now? But already we have proved this is less than by epsilon. Correct now? By which statement? By statement number 1, this is less than by epsilon. But we wanted to prove this term combinedly less than epsilon so that this f square will be integrable. Therefore, what should I adjust this epsilon value? This UP mod f minus LP mod f, so that it becomes less than epsilon. What should be my adjustment?
Epsilon by 2m.
Therefore, here shall I adjust epsilon by 2m. Okay. What is capital M? Capital is the bound of the function M mod f. Therefore, here can I write strictly less by 2m into epsilon upon 2m. Reason is from statement number 1. If what we have proved, UP mod f, UPF square minus LPF square is less than by epsilon, which proves that function f square is integrable on closed interval a to b. Yes, this is what the proof we have done. Any difficulty if you have, you can ask. Okay, this is very important to write the relation between the bound. That is what I am telling you always. In every theorem, to establish the relation between the bounds of the function is essential. Once you establish the relation, it will be easier to give the proof. Okay. Now let us come to a corollary, one of the corollary of this theorem. Actually, we have proved that product of two integrable function is integrable. But now the same we will prove by using this theorem. Square of integrable is integrable. Let us write the corollary. If f1 and f2 are integrable, on closed interval AB, then prove that f1 dot f2 is also integrable. One may have a question. Already we have proved it. No, why we were proving again? This is, you can say, another proof you have by using this theorem. F square is integrable. Okay. Now, as the function f square is integrable, how can I write this product in terms of f1 and f2? Okay. For this, I am going to make use of this formula. A plus b bracket square. How can I write a plus b bracket square? A square plus ab plus 2ab, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Then how can I write this product? AB in
Yes,
terms
ma'am.
of A and B. Is it half times A plus B bracket square minus A square minus B square? Correct, no? Correct? Now the same we were going to use. Here I can write, since F1 and F2 are integrable, on closed interval AB, may I write all the squares. If these two are integrable, what about their addition? Integrable, no? Therefore, may I write f1 square, f2 square, f1 plus f2 bracket square are integrable, are all integrable on closed interval AB. And if all those are integrable, we can write a product as. How can we write the product of these two functions by using this formula? f1, f2 is half times f1 plus f2 bracket square minus f1 square minus f2 square. Now check whether every quantity on the right is integrable or not. f1, f2 integrable, therefore their squares are integrable. f1, f2 integrable, therefore addition is integrable. Addition, its square is also integrable. And lastly, what was taken actually? Difference. And we have already shown that the difference of integrable function is also integrable. Therefore, here by using this, may I say f1, f2 is integrable. One can say this as an alternative proof. Correct now? Understood the proof? Yes, students. Any difficulty with the proof of this product of integrable function is integrable? आहे का कोणाची अडचण? Hello?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Now we are moving ahead towards one of the next part of the syllabus, a next different kind of sum called as Riemann sum. Okay. Up to now, what we have seen, the aspect we have seen regarding integrability by using two sums. Which two sums? Upper sum and lower sum. Okay. Then this upper sum is converted to upper integral. Lower sum is converted to lower integral. Later, if these two integrals are equal, we were saying that the function is integrable. Okay. And what is used, which concept of the function is used in upper sum? Suprema. Here it is used with infima. Correct. And by using the two concept of suprema and infima, what we have seen, whenever we have an actual integration, upper sum always lies above the curve. Correct now? It is of this type. Correct now? Upper sum is above the curve, that of lower sum is below the curve. Why this is lower and above and below? Because of these points, suprema and infima considered. Later, actually these are the concept introduced by Darboux. No, we have given the name Darboux sums. Later, what this mathematician Bernhard Riemann was thought that why to take two different sums so that we were getting the sums, one is above the curve, one is below the curve. Therefore, he has just made some changes in the definition of the sum, and instead of using this capital Mi and small mi, he has changed it to an arbitrary function value. Okay, let me just write again the sum capital Mi delta xi as an upper sum. That of lower sum is small mi and delta xi. Okay. Due to this, one is above the curve, one is below the curve. Then what Riemann has thought of that, what will happen if we replace the suprema and infima by any arbitrary function value, say f of ti into delta xi. What is ti? Ti is any point in the given interval a to b. Or you can say ti is any point in the given ith subinterval xi minus 1 to xi. Okay, and the summation was taken. Why the change he has made? Just to reduce the process to simpler one. Instead of two different sums, two different integrals, he has thought of to make the correction. Okay, this is what a research in mathematics called. Correct now? Instead of going with the two ways, he has given only one way with us. Also, one more fact was there in his mind. Whatever capital Mi and small mi used in the definition of these sums, these are not function values. Are they function values always? Whether suprema and infima are the function values always? Function values असतात का प्रत्येक वेळेस? Example, f of x equal to x on open interval 1 to 2. What is capital M and small m? What is capital M in this function? काय आहे capital M ची व्हॅल्यू? सुप्रीमा काय आहे फंक्शनचा? capital 2. Okay, sorry. 2, sorry. Capital M is 2 and small m is 1.
1.
Are they function values of the given function? Function values आहेत का या दोन्ही? फंक्शन व्हॅल्यूज आहेत का? म्हणजे याच्या प्री इमेजेस आहेत का तुमच्या डोमेन मध्ये? फंक्शन डिफाईन कसा केलाय? ओपन इंटरवल 1 to 2 to say r असा मी डिफाईन केला. 2 and 1 are the suprema and infima we were getting. त्याच्या प्री इमेजेस आहेत का तुमच्या डोमेन मध्ये? m equal to 2 हा कुठल्या पॉइंटला येतो फंक्शन व्हॅल्यू? लक्षात येत आहे का प्रश्न माझा? एक्स घेतल्यामुळे कन्फ्युजन झालं का? एक्स स्क्वेअर करूया. एक्स स्क्वेअर केला तिथे 4 होईल आणि ते 1 होईल. बरोबर? m equal to 4 कुठल्या पॉइंटला येते फंक्शनची व्हॅल्यू 4? At which point you are getting value of function as 4? टू तुमच्या डोमेन मध्ये आहे का? ओपन इंटरवल आहे ना डोमेन?
Yes.
तुमची जी सुप्रीमा व्हॅल्यू आहे ती फंक्शन व्हॅल्यू आहे का?
No.
नाहीये. तसंच इन्फिमा 1 आहे. कुठल्या पॉइंटला मिळतो मला 1? 1 ला मिळतो. 1 डोमेन मध्येच नाहीये. म्हणजे इथे सुप्रीमा आणि इन्फिमा हे जे दोन व्हॅल्यूज माझ्या आपल्याला आलेत ना, त्या फंक्शन व्हॅल्यूज आहेत का?
नाही.
Okay, that is what Riemann has thought. Whatever capital Mi and small mi we were discussing, these are not function values always. Function values असतीलच असं नाही. Okay, therefore what the correction he has made, Riemann has made, the suprema and infima he has replaced with an arbitrary function value, and he has defined this to be a new sum called as the Riemann sum, and the notation use only sum. S stand for sum. Okay, therefore this is SPF. New sum defined by Riemann, therefore this is called as Riemann sum. This is called as Riemann sum. Okay, now let us check how the function is going to give us a graphical structure. Okay, what f of ti is actually ti be any arbitrary value of the function from the given interval. Okay, therefore if you just run up the sum over I here, what kind of terms you are getting? For I equals to 1, this is f of t1, and t1 will be in which interval? First interval, na, x0 to x1. Okay, so let me just show you with a sketch. Suppose this is my function on the interval a to b, say. Okay, now we will divide it into some regions. This is a is x0, so this is x1, x2, x3, x4, x5, x6. Let this be last be x7. Okay, now what we have to do? We have to identify any arbitrary point in every interval. That is t1 is in the first interval now, I equal to 1. t2 will be in the second interval. So let me identify the points only. Here let me put some t0. Let somewhere here it is t1. Not necessarily midpoint, you can plot it at any stage. This is t2, t3, t4, t5, and let this be t6. Okay, 6 intervals, 6 points we have identified. Then what to do? What the sum is giving us a value. First term will be f of t1 into delta x1, no? In the summation f of ti delta xi, my first term is f of t1 into delta x1. What is delta x1 again? Delta x1 is this region, length of the interval. Then again this is going to give us the area of the rectangle with width delta x1 and length or height as f of t1 I have to write, no? Sorry, t1, t2, t3, t4, t5, t6 and t7. Okay. Therefore here height, where is my, this is my point t1. Where is f of t1? Somewhere here it is, not? This is f of t1. Therefore what is the rectangle? What should be the rectangle constructed? Width is this much. Correct? Is it okay? Therefore may I say this first term is giving me the area of the rectangle with height f of t1 or length f of t1 and breadth this delta x1. Correct now? Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Therefore here you can check very easily. Some part of the region is above the curve and some part is below the curve. Similarly, let me do for f of t2. What is the image of f of t2? Somewhere here it is, now. Here it is f of t2. So let me plot the region. Correct? This is f of. What will be the region then? Area. This is the area in the first case. What is the area in the second case? This is the area in the second case. Let us do for the remaining points. Where is my f of t3? Somewhere here is f of t3. This is the rectangle. Correct? This is the area. Where is f of t4? Somewhere here it is. Correct? F of t5 is somewhere here it is. T6. And here it is T7. Is it okay? And these are the respective areas. Therefore here you can observe very easily some area covered by this Riemann sum is some part below the curve and some part is above the curve. Correct now? Therefore one can say this is just like a mixture of your upper sum and lower sum. Okay, upper sum is exactly above the curve, lower sum is exactly below the curve, but that of Riemann sum is some part is above the curve, some part will be below the curve. Again, what will be the criteria of integrability then? If you increase the number of points in the given partition, that is if you take the refinement, okay, whatever is this region above the curve, it is coming towards the actual area. Whatever is the region here below the curve, it is going to reach towards the actual area. If finally, if you consider your number of points in the interval to be n tends to infinity, if the area reaches to the actual integration, function is integrable. If not, function is not integrable. Function is not integrable. Correct now? Finding refinement means what? If n is the number of points in the given interval, if n is the number of points in the given interval, P is my original partition, P star is original refinement. Then we know P is contained in P star. That is number of points increased, no? But as you go on considering the refinement, number of points increases, no? Therefore, what is the limit we were considering here? What is the next definition we have? Limit SPF as n tends to infinity. If it reaches to the actual area, what is A? A is the actual area of the given function, you can say. Okay. If this is so, then the function is integrable. If not, function is not integrable. In other words, whenever I am saying n is tending to infinity, what will be mu of p then? Mu of p is the length of largest subinterval. If you increase the number of points towards infinity, what about the length of largest subinterval? It will tend to which term? Length काय होईल? Number of points जर आपण वाढवले, length of largest subinterval काय होईल? वाढत जाईल का कमी होईल? हां, झालंय आपलं हे डिस्कशन ऑलरेडी. If this is my interval A to B having only 3 points, this is the length of largest interval. Say, if you increase the number of points, what about the length of largest interval? Increases or decreases?
Decreases.
Decreases. If I write n tends to infinity, what about mu p, length of largest subinterval?
0 tends to 0.
This tends to 0, and this is the new definition of integrability. And if it is actual area, this is nothing but integration A to B f dx. This is the new definition called as Riemann sum definition. Previously, we have seen Darboux sum definition. Okay, and this is the Riemann sum definition. The earlier version we will call definition 1. Which is our definition 1? This is definition 1. Upper integral is equal to lower integral. We were going to call it as definition 1. Okay. And this, whatever this I have written just now, we were going to call it as definition number 2. Okay. Now one may have a question. Which one to be used, or whether the two definitions are different or same. Okay. Now Riemann has also proved that whatever the two definitions are given, both the definitions are equivalent. They are same. They are same. That is, one can use the first definition or second definition as per the convenience. So in the next lecture, what we will do? In the next lecture, we will try to see the equivalence between the two definitions. If I wanted to prove the two definitions are equivalent, what one should do? We have to prove definition 1 implies definition 2, definition 2 implies definition 1. Okay. In that way, we can establish the equivalence between the two definitions of integrability. Let us stop it here. In the next lecture, we will go for equivalence of the definitions. If you have any difficulty in today's lecture, you can ask me. Yes, students. Now, thank you then for being with me for this lecture.